good evening, Guyana. Good evening, the citizens in Berbice watching us. Good evening, everyone that's joining us this evening. And I want to start off by saying special Happy Republic greetings. What a wonderful opportunity to celebrate our culture with MASH. And I know everybody was out yesterday. You saw the throngs of people. And I have a feeling that this evening you're just sitting, relaxing at home, and we're glad that you allowed us into your homes. So I want to start by saying we got an exciting program for you this evening. With me is David Patterson, Member of Parliament, and one of our favorites, Dr. Shamir, is here with us. Always good to have him. And a little later, we're going to have Dr. Vince Adams join us. So I wanted to start off by giving you, our viewers, some updates. We've had a really busy week. The AFC is involved in a lot of stuff, doing a lot of good things, working behind the scenes. And I just want you to know that we are here and we continue to fight for you. So, one of the things that I wanted to start off and say is that we had a very good, successful meeting with the new US ambassador. She asked to pay a courtesy call. We met at our office, the Center for Change in Georgetown, and it was a very fruitful and worthwhile discussion. We were able to raise some of our concerns. The fact that, we worry that we still are not making progress towards getting a new list. She agreed and accepted that all the observers at the last election said that a new list had to be a priority. We asked her to push for biometrics at the place of poll because we want to make sure that at the end of the day, when we go to that election, we have systems that are in place. Now, David, I know that you weren't in the meeting, but is there anything you want to add? Because I know you are very involved with our work with GCOM and some of the issues that we would have raised.
Well, good night, Regent 6. Good night, Dr. Professor Shamir.
Good night. Good night.
Pleasure to be here. Look, the GCOM, the matter of GCOM is something that should be of all concern to our Guyanese. Every elections, there is always a challenge with how GCOM operates. They and if we don't get it right, we and the way we are now, I don't think we get it right. I mean, we're talking about biometrics. The PPP likes to claim that if biometrics are unconstitutional, and biometrics, what we mean by that, ladies and gentlemen, is just simply that when you're registering, instead of them taking your fingerprints on those white paper cards and those smudgy things, and so let us move into the 21st century digital. Like if you go to the US Embassy for your visa, or you're traveling in other countries, you scan your fingerprints. And we're saying time for us to do that. Stage one, let us all the registrants let us get their fingerprints. So therefore, obviously, that will ensure and give you a clear idea who's who, rather than depending on those smudgy things. They're not, the PPP are not interested in that. I mean, we're talking about a new list. The issues of the list, ladies and gentlemen, by the time we come to the next election 2025, that list will have over 1 million persons on it. And
Wow.
Everyone knows our population is 800,000. And of that 800,000, only about 400,000, because you have the 18 years and over, are eligible to vote. So you'll have 600,000 persons on the list. And I don't know if you see that a problem or not, but I see that as a massive, big problem. That you can have a list of 1 million people and a voting population of 400,000. You know what I mean? So it's something that has to be addressed and addressed urgently. We have the time.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And David, one of the concerns about having the biometrics at the place of poll is that we know we've had situations, it's been documented, it's been signed off in some of those statement of recounts by all representatives of all the political parties, where you have somebody that is not the rightful owner of an ID card that is claimed to have voted in the name of somebody else.
Mhm.
And then,
Yeah,
of course,
So that is another challenge, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But think about this, folks. Think about this, folks. You have biometrics at the place of poll. You go in and you just put, I don't know, whichever finger you go. You place your finger. Within a
Mm-hmm.
second, it confirms, yes, this is David Patterson. So
Mm-hmm.
we now have a double check. So therefore, you have a check on the identity, but that would also tell us how many persons have actually scanned their fingers, and you can check
Mm-hmm.
with the number of ballot
Mm-hmm.
um, papers you have there. You know what I mean? For a 1 second process, and that's more reliable than you going and show your ID card and what goes on. Um, David Patterson 888, and you read out your ID number card and you walk around. That's so more efficient. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yep.
Just go. There's it. I mean, and they claim that it would disenfranchise the people out in the hinterland. That's not true either,
Mm-hmm.
because all you have to do is get it with a solar system, and all the people that are registered to vote in Shulinap, it's on a laptop. The laptop is hooked up to the biometrics area. That 1 second, you go, you press your finger, you press your finger, and
Mm-hmm.
the green light comes on and say beep, confirm David Patterson. You collect your ballot, vote, deposit it, and back on with your life.
Yep.
Simple. I don't know why they're against it. Well, we know why they're against it.
Yeah. We had, one of the other things that we discussed with the ambassador was the fact that we as a party continue to be concerned that what we call the guardrails of a true democracy are being eroded. And so we did raise that with her, the fact that Parliament is not working as best as it should. There's so many issues that are not allowed to be discussed. And then, of course, we discussed the fact that so many of these big projects, we only hear of a big announcement. The opposition is not consulted. Civil society is not consulted. We're not made aware. And that seemed to really horrify her that there are no processes in consultation that take place, because government is not the only person that should be deciding on where a country is going. We come from a tradition where, in working together in peace and in harmony, we should be all building a better Guyana. And then we go to a contest every 5 years as to who is in power, but who holds the seat of government. But after that, we work together because everybody has a contribution to make. I think at that point, so that's a brief update about a very successful meeting with the US ambassador, and we're going to be having more meetings with them. Then I really want us to go on to the teachers' strike. And Dr. Shamir, I know you're not here, but I know you would have been keeping abreast. And
Yes.
of course, David, you have been here. But Doc, welcome to our program again. And I know you would have a couple comments you would like to make. At the end of the day, this country is making 7.5 million US dollars a day. 7.5 million US dollars a day from oil. And we can't give the teachers better than 6.5%. Doc, you want to start us off briefly on that?
Yeah. Madam Chair Kathy and Honorable Minister, Honorable David, it's a joy to be here. And it's my 16th attendance, and it's the first time with Honorable David. So it's most
Well, we have
memorable.
to change that in the future, man.
Yes. And blessed 54, Republic Day. Tomorrow is Kuwait National Day 63. So blessings to them. And the following day, February 26, is their 33rd Liberation Day.
Mm.
Good evening, namaste, assalamu alaikum, listeners. Everybody knows in Guyana, it's no secret that the civil servants deserve much more.
Mhm.
His Excellency, President Ali, when he was in the opposition, there are the tapes going around in social media.
Mhm.
His Excellency, Vice President Jack Dio, his comments are in. It is purely that they have missed the bus and they do not have the civil servants in the top of the list for whatever the reason. But I hope by now that better judgment will prevail and efforts from others in the Caribbean. I hope the civil servants do not go on strike tomorrow,
Yeah.
Monday, because that will be not good for Guyana's image. I'm being besieged with calls, including from Qatar. If it's the same country that they're seeing all this strike and disunity, but they're not seeing it when they arrive, especially a few placards. The researchers and the staff are doing their due diligence and they're coming up. And because I have personal relationships, I'm being bombarded with requests and answer. And my style is I don't like to give them my opinion. I send them a link, what others and saying, is it true? Is it correct? I get them grade A, B, C, D, E, F. And that is my style. So hopefully the business group will take some leadership and get some. What is surprising to me, the Ministry of Labor job by virtue of the Constitution is to be the mediator.
Yeah.
How come this democratic country, the Minister of Labor is taking a government side? He's one of those constitutional ministry that is to hold the scales evenly for both sides to be trusted. So that is another area that does not augur well for the leadership of the government. And people are watching. They're watching and they're making observation. This coming week, the United Nations U.S. Secretary, representative at UN will be in Guyana. They've all been briefed. I'm being bombarded with questions on Monday. And I tell them, yes, it's true. They're questioning Kaieteur News, Tabruk News, and the social media. I'm told the social media is now more informative than the news media in Guyana. I said, I have a devil's own job to keep up. And yes, so people are making their observations. So they're now going to social media and listening. And I hope the government is aware that they know what they use for themselves in promotion. Some people call it propaganda. I will call it communication, not completely correct. Others are picking up on what people are saying, which is a lot more credible to anybody, any part of the world. So my prayer is that this coming week that we can see a surprise change and the presidents will take charge. President Ali will take charge. If not, he's in charge. The buck stops at his desk, nobody else.
Yeah. Dr. Shamir, you have a wealth of experience with the diplomatic community in several places, several corners of the world. You served as our ambassador, so your comments are well taken. I think what is really, really sad is that, today on the BBC News, you're hearing about Israel and the representatives that are of the Palestinians sitting and talking.
Yes.
And the fact that the Ukraine war, behind the scenes, the two parties are talking.
Yes.
Because everywhere to prevent conflict, the parties must sit and talk.
And I'm talking with both ambassadors in Kuwait almost every day.
Wow.
Separate tracks.
And so really, Guyana is one of those few places where the government, the president who is responsible for keeping all the doors open, keeping peace, keeping the channels of communications, working in the interest of all the different parties, could decide that we're not talking to anybody. It's absolutely bizarre. David, I know that there was some decisions in the court yesterday too, whereby the judge said, Judge Kissoon said that no way can the monies be deducted from the teachers that are on strike. That is a really strong statement. And, we really support the teachers all across Guyana in their strike. But David, give me your thoughts on some of those issues.
Well, this judge, I think Judge Justice Kissoon has been making some very progressive rulings, I find, in the last 12 months. He's the one that ruled on the insurance, the insurance as well, and what it is. And then, so the background of it is that the union, the government has threatened to deduct the pay from teachers the days that they're striking, as well as to stop deducting union dues on behalf of the union. And the union approached the courts and said that this is illegal. They will process. I mean, the right to assembly and the right to is enshrined in our constitution. And what happened is that the AG tried a delaying tactic. So it was the case was supposed to be heard immediately. He asked for I think 2 weeks to respond. And the judge said, fair enough, if you want 2 weeks, here is what I'm going to rule. You can't touch any single cent of, you have to keep deducting the money for the union, and you can't cut a single teacher's salary because, you know what I mean, it is in front of me. Very, very progressive. And that should at least give the teachers some level of comfort. And it should also signal, just as Professor Shamir is saying, signal to the government that you can't run roughshod over every single thing. You can sit down and have a discussion. And I want people in Berbice, meaning and everywhere, to know that the government is also falsely claiming that if you negotiate with the teachers, that everybody else will want an increase. Ladies and gentlemen, the teachers union, very progressive union, has always had a separate collective bargaining, a 3-year deal. So they've always been treated separately. And I mean, the last deal they signed was in 2018 and it expired in 2021. And they've been calling since 2021 on this government to have a 3-year deal. So therefore, they're one set of employees because the union. They don't have to wait every year at the end of the year to hear what percentage they have. It's enshrined in them. And that's all they're asking to go back. Then, I mean, if the rest of the public servants want to have would like that, they have to make their own representation.
Yes.
Teachers union and making a representation. Let us have some bit of certainty in the teaching profession. You give us 10% this year, 12% next year, whatever it is the year after. We have some certainty, we can plan. So we don't have to be waiting with a bated breath at the end of the year for you to announce you're giving us 6.5%. So that's a distinct difference, and don't allow them to assume that that whatever they get a teachers automatically is for the poor.
No, separate tracks,
separate tracks, and Shamira, and that is as you say, you call it, I call it propaganda, you call it that's what they've been saying to people. It's separate tracks, and it's always been that way.
Yes.
Yeah, but David, you know what is so hard, not hard, but so unfortunate, is the blatant duplicity. I don't want to use the word lies and sound disrespectful, but when you have clips of the president when he was a member of parliament,
yes,
in the opposition, screaming and shouting, give the teachers 50%. Yes.
Yeah.
And now you would not, and now you give them 6.5 and you don't even want to talk? You know, and even the vice president, again, these individuals can no longer be trusted because we have recording. That's technology today. We have recordings of what they said 5 years ago and what they're saying today. And it's chalk and cheese. And it's very, very unfortunate. Teachers, fortunately for them, have an opportunity to go all across the world.
Yes.
Like our nurses. And are we really going to push our teachers away?
Yes.
And we will have to pay more to get less.
Exactly.
Yes. I mean, and it is one of those things, and it costs a government. These same teachers, they're saying it. They're saying it was political. No. This same teachers union went on strike against the coalition government.
Yes, I remember.
Yes. And it did not last 3 days because we said you cannot have teachers striking.
Yeah.
But they at the point there was an impasse on what they wanted and what the government could afford.
Yeah.
Without all money.
Without all money.
That's a good
Without
point.
any all money. 3 days it lasted in 2018. And we called them in, sat at the table, and hammered out a collective deal that expired in 2018. We gave them a deal for 2018, 2019 expired. It expired in 2021.
Yeah.
So this can't be. You can't say it's political when they all administrations. Whoever's in power, this has been a progressive union, and they have stood up for their members,
And
irrespective of it.
and we need to understand that when you decide you're going to bring teachers to this country, understand that you have to pay their airfare, you have to provide accommodation, you probably have a transportation allowance, you have to provide their salary. Usually, with those kinds of positions, once a year, there's what you call home leave,
Mhm.
or once every 2 years, where you pay for them
Yep.
To return
and
home.
their family. Remember,
Yes.
they bring in their family too.
Yes.
So the cost, the
Yeah.
additional costs that this government will spend bringing foreign teachers, you don't know where they're going to come from, if they're going to be language problems, language difficulties, whether they will understand our culture too.
Uh,
You know?
Very important.
Yep. So those are all the issues. And the fact that this government would be prepared to spend 5, 6, 10 times the amount of money on foreign teachers and not give our own Guyanese hardworking teachers an increase is sad. That situation is disturbing, but
And
we
let us
wish,
hope collectively that it can be resolved this week, because this week will be
Yes.
the fourth week.
Yes.
It's a plea from me personally, and I know on behalf of the Alliance to Change.
yeah,
Simply
My plea
sit
also, my prayers.
sit and talk. If you
Yes.
need us as a party to help you speak, we're willing to.
We're more
We
than
have
happy.
we have Professor Shamir, who has great negotiation and diplomatic
Yep.
skills.
And I
We will be
personally
willing
reach out to Mr. Lincoln Lewis
to- yeah.
and tell him the image of Guyana to find a way, reach out, backtrack, front track, side track, whatever,
Yep.
to reach out. And he promised he will make an extra effort
Yep.
Yeah.
because
Well,
it's
this is
giving Guyana or country a bad name.
yeah. Well, this is where too, when people are reaching out, I know the private sector commission, I think it was the
Yes.
chamber too. So
Yes.
that's good. And this is where we want the government to respond in a positive way to these initiatives, because at the end of the day, as the teachers themselves have admitted and lamented, our children are the ones that are suffering.
And exams
Our-
are coming up. Critical exams
Yes,
are coming
it's
up.
a difficult time.
Oh,
Common entrance,
yes.
CSEC, CXC, all those exams are coming up. So we hope for a change this week. We really
Amen.
hope for a change that we can put aside personal animosities and rise above in the interest of all,
Yes.
for the good of all Guyana. So the other big announcement, we've had so many announcements that have come up in
One
the
a
last
day.
week.
One a
And I
day.
think, yeah, and I think
One
it's
a day.
because it's because we've had that oil and gas conference that's been going on, and one of the big announcements was about this Qatar group that's going to be building hotels along parts of the seawall. What has been disturbing to Guyanese, of course, is the change in use and that whole discussion, because what they're doing is that some playgrounds that are common grounds. I know traditionally you see the schools having their school sports, you see groups having football, cricket, all kinds of sports at those grounds, and those grounds are now, the government has said those grounds will be more or less sold to the new company. So David, give me some of your comments and thoughts on that. And then after Doc, I'm going to come to you because I think you may know a little bit about this company.
Yes.
I think they're called the
Assets Management Group.
Management, right? So David, start off for us.
Right, ladies and gentlemen. So, good night. So, once again, sometime last year, the private sector commission's dinner, the president made an announcement. This is last year, December, during the Christmas dinner, that a new company, the one that Prof will tell us about, is going to be building a 5-star hotel along Carifest. And there's a lot of buzz and a lot of curiosity, because if everyone knows that there's a national park on the southern side, and on the western side is between Vicinjon and Camp Street. on the northern side, it's sports grounds, and it's been sports grounds since the almost the turn of the century.
Wow.
So I mean, on the different names and those things like that.
Mhm.
So we were a bit. Everyone was a bit perturbed as why would this how would this came about and so. Then sometime last week, they announced that the National Service ground, I mean National Service defunct, as well as the it is not it's not service and another ground. I can't remember the other person will now be given over to to this company, and
Mhm.
they're building a modern. First thing we have to worry about, Kathy considers about previous to this, as of 2020, every single hotel in Guyana was locally owned.
Mhm.
Locally owned. Marriott is run by a brand name, but the company is foreign, but the ownership of the Marriott hotel, the building is local. Pegasus as well. You can go through Cat, all of them.
Yeah.
So right away we're talking about you're now displacing. You're talking empowering and building your own thing. You see, I mean, I anticipated and Prof, I anticipated would have been a local consortium with our
Mhm.
Qatari friends. So I mean, obviously, but it's not that. Secondly, the seawall, as everybody knows, it every Sunday it's a hive of activity,
Mhm.
recreational activities and those things like that. If you can recall when the Marriott was built, how they initially tried to stop people from walking
On the
and
beach.
on the
Mhm.
beach at the back of
Mhm.
Marriott, the
Mhm.
citizens protesting, that happened. Now, of course, now if this happens, if you do that to this group, access to our beaches and those things like that. So, and then of course the ownership of the land, how much they paid for it, is the process transparent? I mean, are they have they been has the land, as you asked, Scott, has it been sold? If it's been
Mhm.
sold, at what price has it been leased? If it's been leased, on what conditions? You know what I mean? Is our laws, do our laws permit you to change sports ground into hotels and those things like that? Several unanswered questions, but I don't want to go. I left propped up, but for me, the biggest issue that I think that we should have is the randomness of these projects.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no, you can't go back to the PPP manifesto and see that we're going to convert your sports ground into hotels. You can't go back into any document that says, oh, this is what you want to have done. You're not even, but they come up and they randomly,
Yeah.
without any implications. I know Prof going to talk about climate change. When I was minister, we looked at trying to reclaim some of the land because Professor Shamir, um, north took after the seawalls. I mean, much further out used to be mud flaps
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
used to go far out. We went to CDB. I went to CDB to try and get to reclaim some of those lands. I mean, that would be progressive. Instead of giving away our grounds, let us reclaim some of the land beyond the border. It's easy to do, I mean, how to put up the boulders and so forth and make a beach and then do something with that. No, the little space that we have, they just keep encroaching.
Yeah, David Kaicho, Starbrook News did a very good
Yes.
editorial,
Yes.
and I really encourage people to read it. And some of the good points that we could share with our viewers that they raised was the fact that for generations, the seawall is an area where locals get to go to
Yes.
relax. You see them on the weekends with children. You see them in morning and afternoon walking up
Yes.
and down. Sunday, and it's a important part of our culture. People
Yes.
from overseas, I have visitors come in and we take a drive by the
Yes.
seawall on the Sunday,
Yes.
you know. And the fact that once a fancy new hotel is in that area, they're not going to allow
No.
music playing
Mm-mm.
till 10 o'clock, midnight, 1
No.
o'clock on special occasions.
No.
They're not going to allow people parking up on those roads.
No.
Security is going to be an issue. So there's a whole decision to change that area that Guyanese have not been part of. How could you even begin to think that you could do that to Guyanese and restrict them? Not to mention, Doc, I know you don't live here, but one of the complaints that we received is that in the renovation that the First Lady did, and we
Oh yes.
acknowledge that the place looks lovely, but we got to do this with fairness. A lot of those vendors that were
Yes,
there for
I
years
heard.
were told they were going to get kiosks. Not one of them, according to what they claim, has gotten any of those new kiosks that were constructed. So it means that we are going to have a large percentage of people that earn their living from the seawall, the single parent woman that sells her drinks, that sells
Yep.
popcorn, the people selling candy floss, the young people selling candy floss to help with school costs, the gentleman doing the barbecue. That's a whole industry of people that are not rampaging and stealing, but are
Hmm.
trying to earn a living.
Honestly.
Honestly, and you have not considered them. You have not considered them. Now, Doc, tell us about this company. And then, of course, I know you have raised your concerns with regards to global warming and the use of the area.
Yes. The group assets management group is reputable.
Okay.
They're rich, they're a holding company, and they have done some fantastic buildings in
Mhm,
Qatar itself. So
mhm,
they're not a Johnny come lately.
mhm,
However, we have an ambassador in Qatar. Did you notice that ambassador was not present? See, sometimes you have to look what is not
wow.
seen. Who was present? The presidential advisor to the Middle East, who has been a friend of the PPP from the days of Dr. Chetty B. Jagan. He
Mhm,
was there. He is from Greece. He has accreditation. He has a diplomatic passport. Allegedly, he has his own plane. And he has been the mover and shaker from my back channels to getting investments into Guyana. That
mhm.
is the reason you will not see it in the PPP manifesto because it was never there.
Mhm.
Something has come and Guyana needs foreign direct investment. The problem is, I don't think, have you noticed the Qatar Prime Minister did not turn up for the opening?
Mhm,
They're reading the research, so he chose to use the video conference and the technology.
mhm,
Even this group, they're not aware of the trouble with the land. They
mhm.
You see, it's how things are packaged. If you're packaged to win, packaged to win. It's only when you do the due diligence, and those people are smart. This signing, have you noticed how many signings we have had since
Yeah.
2020? And how
Yes.
many have actually materialized?
Into
Yes.
something.
Very,
Have
very,
you
very.
heard how many heads of states will be coming announced at United Nations and how many have come? So, there's in Guyana terms, I remember in my day, motar and guitar. They're two different type of music.
Mhm,
So, with all due respect, it was too fast, no consultation, no feasibility studies, nothing. You can't
yeah.
announce in December and do it unless there's some fuddy-duddy stuffs going on. There's
Mhm,
no rocket scientists. And
mhm.
even the people,
Prof, that's an excellent view. I know you're going to go on to
go ahead.
but that's an excellent point that you raised there. I mean, there has to be planning permission,
Yes,
zoning
Mhm,
permission, and those things like that.
mhm,
You know what I mean, before
mhm.
you, yeah.
that is
So,
massive. And that is a Hilton brand, is going to be a high-end five-star Hilton. And the beach is going to be cut off. Even in Barbados, you can't go everywhere, and Barbados has a law. All the beaches are public, but
Yeah.
certain places, they find a way to get a niche exemption, and it
Yeah.
will be there. Guyanese will not be there. So that is there. My back channel is investor. There was an investor under the coalition, got 21 acres of land on the East Coast to buy a hotel.
Mhm.
After the August, the land was taken back and they were
Wow.
given 3 acres of land near to the convention center. Lo and behold, even that was taken back by this diaspora investment. He's worked over 3 years to get a group together to get a hotel on the East Coast, and they took the 3 acres back. And of course,
Yeah.
they recruited an attorney's office, and the case, I'm told, is March the 5th. that the group is taking the government to the case
Very
for
good.
doing
Very
what they did. And these are the kinds of issue will raise more attention. My back
Mhm.
channels, I get so much back channel from Guyana
Mhm.
that a group is reaching out to Al Jazeera and the royal family and to keep them in the loop of what is happening with the land and the area. So there are a
Mhm.
lot of people are taking interest and
Mhm.
try to tell them be respectful. We need the foreign direct investment and let the government to do a little bit more and get the people involved and get buy-in and explain to the Guyanese population so they are more comfortable because no business, in especially who royalty it is, will not survive in any country if the people don't want you. And
Mhm.
exactly.
Qatar will not want that image. I can tell you that. I know the Qataris. I'm connected to ruling families. They could not. So I personally think that there were friends, families, and favorites involved, and it was a good idea. And somebody didn't do their due diligence. They didn't do the
Yeah.
homework. And it's nice, flashy advertisement, 5 star. We don't have a 5 star. That is quite true, and we do need in time. But there's got to be location. Global warming. Kaichur News report.
Yeah.
Kaichur News reported on November the 7th, 2021, their 9 cities will be underwater. And the 9 cities are Georgetown is the first one. And the year is 2030. What year is
Yeah.
this? 2024.
2024.
I'm just
Yeah.
reading, and there is a credible international report. And there's no rocket science. We are below sea level.
Yeah.
Common sense. If you're above sea level, you will be affected. We're getting the oil because we are below sea level, and so the reservoir is Guyana. We're now getting the benefit, but we will
Mhm.
also get the dangers of global warming. And the other cities are Amsterdam in Netherlands, Basra in Iraq, New Orleans, USA, Venice in Italy. They're paying the price already.
Already.
Ho
Yeah.
Chi Minh City in Vietnam, Calcutta, the busy Calcutta in India, Bangalore in Thailand, and lastly but not least, where our new American ambassador is from, that area, Savannah, USA.
Yep.
2030 will be underwater. So I cannot understand how any smart investor with their own money will want to
Six
put it.
years only. Six
Yep.
years. 6 years.
6 years away.
But the Qatari group are now being informed. They have now been educated. And let's see what happens and hope we'll be somewhere else because nobody want to waste their money because they rather give it to charity than to spend
Yeah.
it
And
unwisely. Not
wasted.
only that,
Yep. Yep.
Qatar is value their image. There's a small nation just like the thumb of your hand, but they
Mhm.
have different values. They're even different than the Saudis, the Kuwaitis, and the entire other 5 countries. They have their unique way. And
Mhm.
you remember the blockade with Saudi Arabia and Egypt and
Mhm. Mhm.
Turkey and Qatar not only survive, they
Yep.
survive and prosper exponentially. Who knows? Knows. And they
Yeah.
will not
Thank
want to risk their reputation with a Guyana
you.
project. I
Yep.
can tell you that for sure. And I know them since 2003 from George Washington University. So I'm not
Okay.
going now as an ambassador. So I have personal
Yeah.
relationships. And I'm an external examiner at GW for the doctorates. And that's how I met the ruling families when
One.
they were there in
Wonderful.
the program. So
Yep.
these personal relationships are important. And I
Yep.
hope the government, sooner or later, they will find out from the group itself because the ruling family I know
Yeah.
and they will know also because they
No.
operate in a circle we call the Majlis on a Friday after the Jummah Masjid Namaz.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
Majlis is at work. And on
Oh,
Friday, yesterday, the Majlis would have communicated that and they will do the due diligence. That's what they will do
that's good.
to
That's
find
what's
out
needed.
whether it is.
Yeah. Doc, thanks so much for that update. And I'm happy I see a new addition to our program, Dr. Vince Adams. So happy that you have joined us. Thank you very much. And you joined, Doc, just at the right point because, in fact, we wanted to go on to another important announcement that was made this week, actually, a couple of days ago at the Oil and Gas Conference. And I know it's an area that both you and David have some strength and discussion and information on. And that announcement was that the oil and gas project, the government has finally admitted, will not be completed by 2024. So, David, you want to give us some comments on that and take us into that area now?
Look, Kathy, that announcement is just them finally coming clean.
Yeah.
Everyone, every single one, know that it's an ill-conceived project. Exactly what we were talking about before with the hotels. I mean, if you don't plan, right? If you don't do your proprietary work before you embark on such a big project, you will fail, and that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And, ladies and gentlemen, we've already spent. The government have already spent in 20 up to 2023 80 billion Guyana dollars, 400 million US dollars on this
My
project. We're going to
gosh.
spend another 80. They've taken another 80 billion Guyana dollars out of our budget for 2024. And that's why they're saying they have no money for the teachers and nobody else. You know what I mean? On this dream, the project is just like Professor Shamir was explaining to you. These things can have benefit, but but they can't be beneficial in the way they do anything. The project that we had in design just yesterday, somebody from the media contacted me and I shared it back with us. We had up to 2018. Exxon, the very Exxon, not it's not a, and this is the very weird thing about but really what's going on. I don't know how Exxon being such a big company has gotten involved. Exxon Mobil, and I've said it in front, I've shown it, said to us, said that the cost for the pipeline, 12 inches pipeline, 1 inch thick from Lisa Destiny all the way down to
Where?
we had it in Woodlands, which is
Mhm.
Mahaica, but it's a straight line, so therefore, you know what I mean, would have been 475 US dollars. That included the
Million.
million, 475 million US dollars, including the LPG plant. Exact
Wow.
same thing. The power plant, we got unofficial quotes, we got quotes in, and from and now we can talk quotes from General Electric to build a power plant and quote from Warsilla,
Wow.
275 million US dollars. All in all, we came to 700 million US dollars. That was just 2018 prices. Exxon is now billing what they said they could have done. This is the pipeline alone was 300, and all the rest was, you know, what I mean, the other $100 with the LGN plant and what. They are now moved their price in 2018, what they give us officially, not no back of the envelope thing. They've moved their price from $300 million to $1 billion.
Wow.
Exact same.
Wow. Same
They not.
project.
It didn't change material, nothing at all.
Mm.
The PPP has moved the gas plant, which we got from GE, the quotations we got from GE and from Warsilla, and which was 275 million Guyana dollars. From they've moved that from 275. It's now $1 billion. And no one has the respect to say to this country, why?
Yeah. Why is it more than
Why
three
is
times
it?
the increase?
What has happened? You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? It can't be inflation.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that you have done to this project with our money that has quadrupled the price? No one says so. And then they said, well, we're in a hurry. We're going to do this thing. We got to get this thing finished and it'll be finished. And we'll be turning on our lights in now, 2024, the beginning of 2024. When questioned in Parliament, when I questioned the Prime Minister in Parliament, do you know when they signed the contract, Vincent and Shamir? When they finally signed the contract for the power plants, December the 21st, 2023.
2023?
Last year,
La-
December,
Last
God.
year.
when he was questioning him. So all this while they were just fooling,
Talking, but nothing.
right? And then of course now they approach the US Exim Bank, which you guys would know. And the
Fine.
US Exim Bank, just as Shamir was saying, when people look at these things, it sounds nice and they do nice brochures and so forth in Guyana, and they claim you're going to reduce. But when the US Exim Bank experts, I'm sure, looked at the project, they said, no, this ain't add up. We ain't seen X, we ain't seen Y, we ain't seen this, so we can't get involved until X, Y, and Z. That's why it hasn't been approved.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? It
And
has to
my
go
my
through.
back channel says that project will not be approved,
I have
irrespective of
not,
whatever you hear.
I'm not
And
surprised.
Guyana will have to finance it. They will not approve it. I
Wow.
know,
And
and
Kathy,
that is
let
very
me
strong.
let me
Yeah.
jump in there
Thanks,
real
Doc.
quick
Come in.
to with what David was saying in terms of planning. And we all know the fiasco about this feasibility study that was never done, which would have answered every single question that David is talking about. Economics, the technical aspect, the environmental aspect, it would have answered that. And you remember the only feasibility study that was done was Jack Deere was saying it was a no-brainer. That was the only thing. And here, but here is a presumptuousness about Mr. Vice President Jack Deere. The guy is now. The guy said, and David knows this better than anybody else because nobody is more knowledgeable than than David. The guy came out and said last week, I think it was last week no, it was a week before press conference. There were 6 feasibility studies of 6 locations, and we
No.
all know that that's a blatant lie.
Yeah.
And the Wales project was selected as number 1. As a matter of fact, as I recall, David was even informed me that in the studies that David did, Wales was ranked like number 10 of all of the
When they did,
Traffic,
just like,
traffic
yes,
on the river.
But
yes, when
Traffic on the river.
Shamir
here's the other part, David. Here's the other part. Here's the other part. Let me finish. Here's what the vice president said. Remember, no feasibility studies. And like David said, the price now has gone from 250 million to a billion or whatever it is. However, the cost, which is amazing, the cost, you remember he said they were going to produce at 8 cents per kilowatt now. Now, I'm hearing him saying it's now 4 to 5 cents per kilowatt hour. So I don't know how the cost could increase, but the cost per kilowatt hour.
Good on.
But here's the part. Remember, no feasibility study. Here's what I'm going to quote the vice president because he always liked to deny. In his last press conference at minute number 15. So I'm being here's what he said. Everything has to be done on the basis of a feasibility study.
Amen.
Here he continues. He says all of these things have to be determined not on the basis of a desire, goodwill, or good intention, or else they will not be financially feasible. So it is this schoolboys, it is this schoolboys type of approach that Norton has. So here's this guy who never did any feasibility study.
Yep.
But now he's saying everything has to be done on the feasibility study. Go ahead, David. I just
Yeah,
want
David.
I just wanted to make a little correction to myself there, and I just pull up my notes. The pipeline in 2018 would have cost 308, not 400. The gas plant would have been 25 million, and the power plant. So in total, it would have been 608 million US dollars. So that's the correct number. Just pulled it up on my my phone.
Well,
But-
sorry, continue, David.
And this is why, I mean, I heard the Guyana private, this is the Georgetown private sector, GCC, I think they're the one that came out and they would have written the Exim Bank and they came out in support of it. But they acknowledge they've seen nothing, but they've done their general conversation. But let me say this to the Georgetown and to our nation. I'll talk about GPL. Currently, GPL has what we call 30% line losses, which is commercial loss, which is theft, people thieving,
And
15
transmission.
transmission. So
Mhm.
every megawatt that GPL produces, right, they lose 30%. So obviously, so they can only get revenue back
70.
for 70%. So what they have to do to keep themselves operational, that's why they have to add on the 30% loss to break so that they don't opposite to the
Mhm.
deficit. So if the vice president is telling you, he give me a 4 cents, you have to add on 30%. If not, somebody has to be 30%
Guys in it.
subsidizing it. Secondly, um, the GPL as an organization and as a business, it just doesn't run the gas to shore project. It runs electricity all around in Essequibo, Bartica, Leg One, you know what I mean? And as a entity, and it does maintenance and so. GPL, when I left in 2014, costs their administrative productive cost was 4.5 cents US per megawatt. This is the amount of money that it took GPL to send out your bills, to get meter readers, the administrative cost. So on top of whatever number they give you, because they're not telling you what the number they're selling to the consumer. They say, oh, we produce this electricity at 8 cents. You have to add on the 30% for the
Oh
Loss.
boy.
loss,
Oh
plus
boy.
the four and
Admin.
a half cents, and
Admin.
you back up to 11, 12 cents, whichever base number they put there, you know what I mean? But and this is the disappointing thing about when I heard that the Georgetown Chamber spoke about it. I mean, these are publicly available. You go to PUC website and they'll tell you about the line losses. You go to GPL's website and they'll tell you how much it is. So you have at least 7 or 8 cents that you have to tackle, which is inbuilt because of GPL inefficiencies that you have to put onto any number that Jagdio gives you there. And
Yep.
right now, we're selling at 15 cents.
Wow.
Right? For you to half it, it means that all the electricity has to be absolutely free based on this here. Free, well, meaning
David.
no sense, right? Got to be free. The government got to
Mhm.
be paying it 100% subsidized. So
I don't want to cut you all, but we have just a few minutes left.
7.
I just wanted to say that for me as a ordinary citizen, what blew me away was the recent announcement by the president that this power plant that hasn't been built yet, hasn't been constructed, is not going to be sufficient, and so we got to start looking at the second one. Did you hear that? You gentlemen saw that?
Yeah, I heard.
Because I looked at that and I thought this is bizarre. Any normal person, if you build in a house and you got certain amount of people that gotta fit in the house, and you didn't even start really to put up the roof and the walls,
yeah,
wouldn't you be looking at that same project to work out how we can fit everybody?
Yes.
You haven't
So-
built it, but then you're already saying that there's
you
no
gotta build another
space
one.
for others, and you got to build another one. Simply,
Listen
let's
to
build
me.
another one.
Listen to me, folks. Listen to me, folks. That is what they do. So he says this to distract you.
Yeah.
Because remember, Cathy, he wants to build, he said that he's building a Mila Falls.
Yeah.
One of their things. You haven't heard a word about a Mila Falls, a
Anymore.
single word.
Yeah.
That poor Hydro Falls just committed seppuku or something like that, died, and they buried him and they had a ritual and those things like that.
Mhm.
So he's distracting you to we were talking about the randomness in which they plan these things.
Yep.
So he's now telling you about it, but he hasn't told you what happened to Milo Falls. He hasn't explained to you when you finish this power plant how we can get it's over in Wales. How you
Yep.
getting power over to Georgetown and to Berbice.
David,
But they say these things and they know it will incense and you pick up and you'll be distracted from the current failures. And that's why he does these things. I mean, even if so we now be scampering and talking about what he intends to do, but and take our eyes off the prize, which is it will be another skeleton. We have a white telephone, a failed project on our hands, and we've seen it every single day.
folks, we're practically out of time. I'm going to take the liberty of doing an extra 5 minutes because one of the critical things that happened this week, and I'm so glad we have Dr. Vince Adams here too, is that oil spill in Tobago. I mean, how horrifying was that? I would urge citizens, if you haven't been up to date on that, to go to Sherrod Duncan. As you know, Sherrod Duncan is our General Secretary,
Amen.
AFC, doing some amazing work.
Yes.
Sherrod got up on his own speed and got to Tobago to give us some information. So we're not going to be able to show the photographs. And so I say to you, go and look at In the Ring, go and look at Sherrod's page. But Doc
Jesus.
and David, I definitely want some of your comments on that terrible situation that Tobago is now facing. So give us, before we sign off, in as much a shorter space of time, some information on what's going on there and how it impacts on what can happen in Guyana. Doc, I know you've been talking about this for a long time.
Yeah, here, just to quickly give you a perspective, the numbers that, and of course, the president of, or the prime minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Riley, has declared it an emergency situation. And this here is only the highest number that we're hearing is about 30,000 barrels. So let's say that's the maximum amount. We have every single day, or every couple of days right now, with 650,000 barrels that we're producing. Every other day, we have at least one shipload of oil that is 1 million barrels per day.
Oh my
That
God.
means that the probability or the risk of something happening increases, because every other day you got one ship. Now, one of those ships would be equivalent, if something happens to one of those ships, would be equivalent to over 30 of this ship, 30 of these ships being damaged at the same time, 30 times what happened with this one ship. So that gives you an indication, if this could be declared a disaster, what would happen if one of those ships happened. And the other thing is, what we are showing here as a lessons learned is that even Trinidad, that has been producing oil for over 100 years, they were not even prepared to handle this oil spill. And I know for sure that our emergency spill plan is totally inadequate. When I was at the EPA, we refused to even sign that document. And then here, let me go back to the vice president, Mr. Guru. He believed that he's the guru. The vice president decided that he was going to misinform the people. And when the question came up at his last press conference, he said, well, basically, he brushed this aside and said, well, not to worry, because at least Guyana has coverage. Well, of course, it's coverage that they don't even want to show people what coverage they have. But when I was at the EPA, as all of you recall, this administration, or the coalition administration, put in place what is called an unlimited parent company guarantee to be covered by Exxon.
Yes.
Here's what the vice president is saying to totally fool people, because this has been in the discussion forever, and I know that he knows what the facts are, but he's misleading people. It was supposed to be unlimited, and the reason why we demanded it from Exxon is because Exxon name is not on any document, it's not on any permit. Exxon is not liable for anything. It is the parent, it is the subsidiary. This is the local company. The EPGL, Esso Exploration Guyana Limited. Now it's Exxon Mobil Limited, EMGL Guyana Limited. They have no assets to cover all the money. All the assets lie with the parent company. That is why when we wrote that parent company guarantee, that was the reason why we did that. When they took office, they scrapped all of that. That's what caused the lawsuit. That is what caused the lawsuit. So this vice president, and then now he's coming out with this nonsense last week's press conference, and he's done this before, to say, well, the company has assets of $20 billion. Draw down from it. Those assets are our assets.
Yes.
He's paying for those assets in style.
Separate tracks.
The spirit of it, what he's saying, that we could go and claim those assets, and get the money out of it, and to pay for, which is absolute nonsense. And then he confuses himself by saying, well, are you really questioning Exxon Mobil, one of the biggest companies in the world,
Valdez.
his assets. It has
Valdez.
nothing to do with Exxon Mobil assets. It is the local company asset. But this guy is confused or
Yes,
is
deliberately.
ignorant of what the facts are. And that was the reason, because he's making the argument for the parent company guarantee. That is why we went for the parent company guarantee, because right now, Exxon Mobil, the deep pockets, they've got no liability whatsoever. And if something happens, it's the subsidiary company or the child company, I like to call them,
That would be
that they
liable.
have no access to cover spill. And here's what he says. He's defending them to say, oh, it would bankrupt Exxon Mobil.
No.
What he's saying there, it is okay to bankrupt to bankrupt Guyana, but I don't want Exxon Mobil to be bankrupt. Because could you imagine if it's gonna bankrupt Exxon Mobil, what the heck is it gonna do with Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean countries? But he's saying, listen, if we get a spill, it's gonna bankrupt those folks. So we don't want to have a parent company again, which means he's saying, but it's okay then for Guyana to be bankrupted.
Yeah.
So that's the situation. And by the way, before I close, I want to let folks know those numbers that I'm telling you about. It, like, if we get a spill, and we all know you've got to take into consideration the human factor. You could engineer anything to be safe, but somebody captaining on a ship with 1 million barrels of oil every single day, we go out, we take a drink, we sleep late, and you drop to sleep and you run on one of those drinks. That spill will be tortured and what Trinidad is experiencing here. Wash away the entire Berbice coast. The quarantine, that entire coast would be gone.
How would it impact, Vince? How would it really impact the citizens in the Berbice area?
A lot of them, the beaches, nobody's going to be able to use the water.
Fishing.
Nobody is going to be able to go fish anymore. We see what's happening and it's going to last, who knows, it's probably going to last for a year. Look at the Exxon Valdez. The Exxon Valdez.
They're still fighting it.
They're still, exactly.
Yes.
So,
and how long ago was that again? Can we remind our viewers how long ago and how much money it costs?
I can't remember the Exxon. What I know is the Macondo
It's about like 15 years, I think. And then
the Macondo spill. The Macondo spill cost $145 billion US dollars, $145 billion US dollars. Our entire budget that we're bragging about here is about $5 billion, the Guyana budget. So the Macondo spill costs over 30-something times, close to 40 times, what our entire national budget is. And this vice president is saying that, and he's fighting it, and that's exactly why we decided to put that unlimited parent company guarantee. And he has fought against that. Remember the two citizens that went ahead and sued Exxon to implement what's in the permit and what Exxon had already signed up to under the coalition. They had already signed up and agreed that they will do it. And then the government, the new government, when the PPP came in, they scrapped it, and because they scrapped it, that was what triggered the lawsuit by the two Guyanese citizens with lawyer Melinda Janke, because they said no, you got to comply with the law and the permit. And you remember Judge Kissoon ruling says absolutely yes, you have to comply. And the government. Could you imagine the government went against that, against its own people's protection?
I remember.
But it's protecting Exxon. Oh, I don't want to do this because it would bankrupt Exxon. Even though Exxon had already agreed to it.
Yep.
I don't want to bankrupt Exxon, but it's okay. It's either you bankrupt Exxon, the rest of the country, or you bankrupt Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean. Because remember, you see Tobago is highly dependent upon tourism. You know what's going to happen? All of that. Nobody's going to book. They're canceling everything now to go to Tobago. That's what's going to happen in the entire Caribbean when it's washed away. And that's what's going to happen in Guyana. Nobody's going to, so we're going to lose not only in real time for cleaning it up, but the entire economy. And David had presented motions in Parliament concerning the same issue. and they did not even entertain the discussion.
They wouldn't even allow a
That's what
discussion.
we're dealing with here.
Yep.
That is what we're dealing with.
Gentlemen,
Valdez was March 24, 1989,
wow.
and $7.2 billion, and more is adding every day because it's still continuing.
Yep. Gentlemen, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure being here, having this discussion. I'm sorry we're out of time. I am taking liberties and thanking in advance DTV TV
Yes.
for giving us the extra couple of minutes. Now, I know we're out of time, but is there anyone that wants to take literally 10 seconds to say your final words? 10 seconds each of you.
Prayers that the strike will end next week, that they will conciliation talks, and level head and smart servant leadership will take hold of Guyana leadership of the government next week.
I made a quick calculation to fund the teachers, to give them, each of them, by the way, the average salary of teachers is $179,000 Guyana dollars per month, which is about 800 US dollars, which is the lowest in the Caribbean, by the way. Even Antigua and Grenada, who do not produce oil, they're making double what the teachers are making. So if you do a quick calculation, which is the 50% raise that Barra Jagdeo and the president were clamoring for, if you give the teachers 50% raise, all that would require is taking 1% of the infrastructure budget out of the 666 billion, which occupies 58% of the budget. If you take 1% of that money, you can give the teachers that $100,000 raise, or the 50% raise. 1% out of the infrastructure money.
Excellent.
All I want to say is
10 seconds.
next week this week is an important week. You know, we have heads of government here in Guyana. We have the U.S. ambassador, permanent ambassador, cabinet member from the U.S. coming. We also have President Lula from Brazil coming. So it'll be an interesting week. So next week when we report, we'll be able to tell you any progress we have this country has made.
Great. And I want to say to everyone, be safe and continue to ensure you look out for your fellow citizens. We want to build this beautiful country. One
Amen.
people, one nation, one destiny. Everybody can get a bit. Thank you very much to our technical operator, Sharon Duncan,
Yes.
and to DTV. Happy Mashramani,
Thank you.
everyone.
Happy Mashramani. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night,
Pleasure
everyone.
being here, boys. Good night.